Bună seara, doamnelor și domnilor! Vă mulțumim că sunteți alături de noi. Ascultați Radio AVFM, Vocea Europei.
Jó estét, hölgyeim és uraim! Köszönjük figyelmüket! Önök az a AVFM Rádió Európa hangja műsorát hallgatják.
And, good evening ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to A Voice for Men Radio, the voice of Europe. A Voice for Men is the flagship of the men's rights movement. And this show is probably the only one at this point addressing the issues concerning men and boys at a European level. If you ever thought that there's something wrong regarding the state's approach to men and their issues, this is the best place to start. This is the place where feminism gets to be called out on its lies and propaganda, and the state is invited to get out of people's lives. Please consider visiting avoiceformen.com and see how the truth in action sounds like. We are here and we don't plan on leaving anytime soon. And now, Lucian Balthan shall bring us on today's topic.
Feminists and manginas be warned.
While you're listening to this show, bricks of logic may fly out.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight at The Voice of Europe we'll be talking about the all-too-present meme of rape culture. First of all, allow me to make it perfectly clear that this talk will mainly be focused on Europe and possibly North America. This caveat is necessary not only to avoid quote mining, but also because there is absolutely no intent on the part of AVFM to downplay instances where a rape culture actually exists, in places like, for instance, Congo. And while we're at it, it should probably also be mentioned that in places where a rape culture actually exists, the manifestations of it are entirely different than what our philosophical opponents think a rape culture looks like. For non-ideologically driven individuals, a rape culture is understood to be a culture in which prevalent attitudes and practices normalize, excuse, tolerate, and even condone rape. Examples of such a culture would be, as stated earlier, places like Congo or Uganda, some prisons, and particular instances of war when rape is used as a weapon, and so on and so forth. However, for ideologically driven individuals, like our philosophical opponents, the definition of a rape culture is a bit longer than the one understood by the non-feminist majority. In the feminist framework of thinking, or rather non-thinking, a rape culture is defined more broadly, and it is implied that it only or mostly affects women. From the feminist lobby, we find out that opposing the ludicrously inept concept of enthusiastic consent makes one a supporter of the rape culture. From the same feminist lobby, we find out that sexual objectification is a behavior associated with the existence of a rape culture, despite the indisputable scientific evidence clearly showing that all sexual beings objectify other sexual beings. By claiming that sexual objectification is a manifestation of a rape culture, feminists are basically claiming that the entire planet is a rape culture. Any individual would agree that a culture in which blaming the victims of rape for what happened to them is indeed a culture that at least excuses or normalizes rape, and could be argued that it is a rape culture. Feminists say the same thing. However, like with many other concepts, the feminist definition of victim blaming is very, very different than the definition that the non-ideologically driven individuals have in mind. In the feminist mind, asking for evidence is victim blaming. Upholding the right of the accused to a fair trial and the presumption of innocence is victim blaming. Heck, even bringing up the fact that two people being drunk and having sex is not rape is victim blaming. Now, I use non-gendered terms as the English language allows, such as the victim, the accused, and so on. But in the feminist mind, the accused is the man. If an instance of female-to-male rape is discussed, then, in that case, asking for evidence is a good thing, and providing evidence is misogyny. Okay, so feminists have double standards and an incoherent and inconsequential worldview. That's not news for the non-feminist majority, so what's the problem? The problem is not per se with the existence of this ideological concept, but with the fact that this concept has been increasingly used in drafting legislation at the EU level in the last 5 or 6 years, and in some countries, notably Sweden, the UK or France, this concept has been enshrined in academia, the judicial system, in law and other corridors of power for more than 35 years. To make things worse, in many circles, this concept has been turned into a meme that way too many believe. Just like many other memes that are in fact damn lies, such as the pay gap, i.e. the 77 cents on the dollar, male privilege, and so on and so forth. And it's not just the problem of the English-speaking circles. The second most searched topic when one is typing culture du in Google is culture du viol, which is the French equivalent of rape culture. A quick Google search on cultura de la violación with a filter for articles posted last week gives us the first results, a YouTube clip about the latest slut walk held in Buenos Aires, and surprise surprise, the second link comes from esceptica.org, which is the Spanish language arm of Skeptic, declaring that the entire internet is a rape culture. The more you look into countries less influenced by feminists, such as Romania, the more you'll find articles that talk about rape culture in a non-ideologically driven understanding. A search for cultura violului, which is a Romanian for rape culture, brings us only one article from a feminist source and several articles about how both men and women are raped in places like Uganda or Congo, and nobody seems to care despite the UN's big claptrap about the topic. With that in mind, it's safe to say that turning rape culture into a meme is connected with the feminist influence in the society. So, as mentioned at the beginning of this talk, the question is, what makes people believe this kind of nonsense? We know and understand why ideologues believe it, and we know and understand why many politicians and officials believe it, or at least say they believe it. But what makes regular Janes and Joes to believe that Europe is a rape culture? What is the driving force? One could argue that social ostracism is an effective tool in places like Sweden to keep everyone in check. But how about France? Politics is the national sport in France, and everyone can say and does say virtually anything, so the risk of being ostracized and the risks to one's career are smaller even when questioning the holy cows of feminism. Yet still people believe it. Call in and engage! I am Lucian Vulsan, and this is the Voice of Europe.
Hey.
Alright, we're back. Greetings everyone, this is Lucian Vulsan broadcasting from Cluj-Napoca. Alongside with me is James Huff broadcasting from the United States. And we have finally a co-host. And alongside with me is Jon Gunnarsson broadcasting from Germany. Hello there, Jon.
Good evening everyone. And hello there, Lucian, and hello there, James.
Yep, how's it going with the weather on your side of the world?
Weather this last couple of days has not been that fantastic. Like a week ago it was really warm and sunny, but now these last couple of days it's been rather cold and we had some rain.
Yeah, well, it didn't stop raining. It only stopped raining briefly around here, and to make things worse, in the eastern part of the country, even a bit of snow has fallen today. So what the fuck? It's April. Where is that perpetual warming? Yeah, whatever. With that being said,
April is supposed to be that month where the weather is sort of weird and it changes all the time, so I guess it fits.
Yeah, somehow. But snow? I mean, in the middle of April, snow. On the other hand, Yeah, well, on the other hand, if I remember correctly, in early 90s we had a year when on May 2nd we had huge snow, as in 2 roads closed and things like that, and then in 3 days later it was again 27 degrees in Celsius. So
wow.
It's all that global warming, guys.
Yeah, indeed.
No, it's climate change. So it's when it changes, even if it gets cold, it's still climate change. So.
Yeah, today is raining, tomorrow is not raining, so therefore the climate has changed and we must close down a few more factories on that. Okay, with that being said, James, could you please play us the news jingle?
You are listening to AVFM Radio, the voice of Europe. This is the news.
All right. The first piece of news comes from the female section of Daily Mail. And of course, since the folks from Daily Mail are patriarchal oppressors, there's a man writing the article. Men should be afforded anonymity in rape trials. It's a human right. High Court Judge Maura McGowan is correct, says Peter Lloyd. Earlier this week, Mail Online reported on Maura McGowan, the Deputy High Court Judge who recommended that men should be granted pre-conviction anonymity in rape trials. In a rare example of common sense within British law, the leading figure said that men should have their identity protected unless they are convicted. Quite frankly, I agree. Only yesterday, Mail Online reported on the case of Sophie Hooper, a 19-year-old woman who maliciously accused an innocent man of rape. The mother of one, who was photographed smirking outside Southampton Crown Court after avoiding a jail sentence, only admitted to fabricating the allegations 2 months into the police investigation. Sadly, cases like these are increasingly common. In April last year, Kent's Kirsty Sowden, a former John Lewis shop assistant, was jailed for 14 months after crying rape over a fully consensual encounter with a man she'd met online. He was arrested at his workplace in front of colleagues and detained in a cell, wasting 376 hours of police time and costing £14,000. In May 2012, 20-year-old Hannah Byron was spared jail after falsely accusing her ex-boyfriend of rape in revenge for breaking up with her. In August, Sheffield's Emma Saxon was jailed for making a false rape allegation against her boyfriend, Martin Blood. He was held in police custody for 14 hours and subjected to an intrusive medical examination, all because he'd stood her up. Meanwhile, Tessidy's Joanne Buckley was jailed for 3 years in September after stabbing a man because he refused to have sex with her, then threatening to cry rape if he went to hospital for treatment. These cases, and the many, many more like them, are exactly why men deserve protecting by the law as much as women. Tellingly, my opinion is shared by the majority of Britain. In 2010, a poll conducted by Mail Online showed that 67% of readers want pre-conviction anonymity for rape defendants, as opposed to 33% who don't. Originally, the law agreed as well. In 1976, the Labour government introduced rape trial anonymity for both the alleged victim and the accused. It operated this way until 1988, when guidelines were relaxed to help police investigation. At the time, the media was far less powerful, less global, less permanent than it is today. There was no internet, no slew of gossip magazines, no mobile phones with cameras, no social networking sites. Police techniques and technology were also less refined, so a lack of anonymity helped them. Now things are different, dramatically so, and once again the law should change to reflect this. Why? Because a not guilty verdict is no longer enough to repair the planet-sized crater of damage caused by weeks of daily headlines across the globe. Perhaps more importantly, it's also a human right to be innocent until proven guilty. Feminists like Julie Bindel disagree. She seems to believe that men deserve a stain of rape stigma, guilty or not, simply because they are male. In fact, she once said being falsely accused wasn't so bad. A fair number of celebrities have been accused in rape in the past and do not seem to have suffered long term, she incredulously wrote in The Guardian. To say that an accusation ruins lives is perhaps a sweeping generalization. Perhaps she should speak to Peter Bacon. In 2009, he was cleared by a jury in just 40 minutes after being falsely accused of rape by a woman he met through a one-night stand. Although he was totally exonerated, the incident was so traumatic that he changed his name and left the country. His life was utterly destroyed. Meanwhile, the accuser kept her anonymity and, for all we know, went on to accuse others. Where's the fairness in that? To say this doesn't matter is not only patronizing, but irresponsible and sinister. It also smacks of some darker gender agenda. Ironically, women like Bindel are enraged at the concept of pre-conviction anonymity for men, yet so few of them are equally outraged by the false accusers who betrayed the sisterhood and the real victims of rape with their lies. Yet these women are damaging rape justice more than pre-conviction anonymity ever could. Even Labour peer Lord Corbett, who introduced the 1976 law providing a mutual pre-conviction anonymity, argued this until his death in February 2012. He told in the Evening Standard in 2002, quote, "Rape is a uniquely serious offense and acquittal is not enough to clear a man in the eyes of his family, community, or workplace. He is left with this incredible stain on his reputation. The case for matching anonymity for the defendant is as strong now as ever. He was right in life and he is right in death. Besides, the benefit of mutual anonymity would cut across both genders, helping victims as well as conserving fair trials. For a start, it would deter anyone from making false claims out of spite, seeing the accuracy of conviction rise, not fall. Secondly, it could make testifying easier for those who've come forward. Identifying the accused often inadvertently identifies the victim, which adds immense pressure for them. It's all wrong. In 2010, an official inquiry report led by Baroness Stern, a prison reform campaigner, ordered Harriet Harman to stop misleading the public about rape statistics. For years, she'd been pumping misinformation that only 6% of rapists are brought to justice, when the reality is very different. Actually, the rate is more like 2 in 3, a figure which is much higher than comparable numbers for other violent crimes. But Harman's creepy spin is symptomatic of another problem, because the way we criminalize rapists seems to have become political instead of securing robust, fair trials. People now want a system where women have all the power, and if this would guarantee justice. Unfortunately, women like Maura McGowan see the reality. Like the rest of us, she understands the abhorrence of rape and the importance of justice. Yet even in discussing such an emotive issue, her response remains rational. Name the convicted, not the constricted. The overwhelming majority of men are not rapists, not by a long shot, and the law must remember this. Perhaps Harriet and Julie should, too. Yep. Well, it's been a while since Mr. Lloyd wrote something on the Daily Mail, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I actually have to disagree with him with his central thesis. I don't think there should be any sort of anonymity in these trials. I think both the accuser and the accused should not have any sort of special anonymity. I don't think it's right that we just ban the press from writing about this. I don't really see a good reason for this anonymity.
Yeah,
obviously the current situation where like the accuser is anonymous but the accused is not, that's of course a terrible situation, but I think neither of them should be.
Yeah, well, whilst I was
I have an opinion on this.
Go ahead, Dave.
I do agree that there should not be anonymity for either party. I mean, don't we know the names of victims of murder? Huh? However, I think the principle of universality needs to apply. And while I don't mind telling people that I don't think anonymity should apply, I think the chances of us actually getting those laws struck from the books are slim to none. We have a much greater chance of at least providing similar protections to the accused. So if I was going to put my efforts in, I would argue for the principle of universality.
Yeah, but the principle of universality would also say that freedom of the press should be universal. So I'm not sure about that. Whether the status quo is better or worse than what Peter Lloyd proposes there.
Now, look, nobody's arguing per se about banning the press for writing this. It only says that it merely says that when there is a new trial going on, the court of justice just simply do not release the names of the parties involved. So at best, the press would only know that there is a new rape trial, not necessarily a press-wide gag order. I guess that's what you were thinking about.
Okay, if it's just about not releasing the names, then I'm fine with that. But I think that they're also talking about like not allowing the press to write about this or not to publish the names.
Well, at this point, the press isn't forbidden in writing the names of the accusers. They just have little to no ways of finding out who the accuser is.
Oh, okay.
And also, whilst I was gathering the news, I was thinking about that. Thinking with the principle of universality, well, why not have full anonymity of both parties in, I don't know, cases of robbery, for instance? I mean, I don't know, I've been robbed on the street and I go and say, look, I know it was my neighbor and that information should not be in the press. Lucian is accusing his neighbor of robbing him on the street, something like that, you know. And that is an important question. On the other hand, as James put it, if we are to evaluate the chances of actually getting one of these things done under the status quo where rape is considered a uniquely different crime than other forms of assault, then yeah, probably not releasing the names of any party actually makes sense, and it is easier to implement, so to speak.
Yeah, it's more actionable. Now, like I said, I don't think there should be anonymity in any case. But hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And as an activist, if I have to put my efforts behind establishing some kind of protection to men and boys, then by God, I'm going to fucking argue for the lesser evil if I have to, and that means extending them the same anonymity that the accusers receive.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Okay, next piece of news from my own backyard, a very, very creepy piece of news. I hope it never happens, but anyway. Mediafax.ro, pri copie sistemul educațional obligatoriu trebuie să includă copiii de 2-5 ani. The mandatory educational system must be extended to include children from age 2 to 5, says Minister Prikopie. The extension of the mandatory educational system by including children's age 2 to 5 in their preschool preparing is one of the main concerns of the educational minister of Romania, but also of other countries of Europe, especially in the cases of children coming from defavorized families, says the minister Remus Prikopie. The Minister of Education declared for Mediafax that including the children from a very young age, especially the gypsy children, in the educational system is a theme that is concerning the entire European community, as the specialists that have come to the conference for education were organized by the World Bank have said. The consolidation of the educational system to include very young children is ensuring a very efficient learning process, say the experts. Prikopia said that the Ministry of National Education wishes to extend, as of 2015, the mandatory education to commence at the age of 5 and then gradually go down towards the age of 3 or 2. For the gypsy communities, these are the projects that involve learning throughout one's entire life are very important because besides the fact that there are children who are not including in any form of preparing, there are also parents who only have very little education themselves, says the minister. The inclusion and creating of equal chances of equal access to education for the gypsy children have represented one of the very important subjects approached by the participants at the World Bank conference organized in Bucharest. The emphasis was especially placed on the politics that the United Kingdom and Hungary have adopted with regards to the early inclusion of the gypsy children in their education system, but also to this discussion, experts from Norway and Russia also joined. Yeah, let's learn from Russia. Definitely. We can learn a lot about inclusion from Russia. Anyway, the disadvantaged and susceptible groups, the disadvantaged and the susceptible groups of not being included in the national education system are represented on average by children coming from the rural area and those coming from poor families. They don't succeed by the age of 3 to develop themselves a vocabulary of over 1,000 words as it would be normal according to the studies made by the specialists in education. More and more countries from Central and Southeastern Europe are appreciating that the early education of children represents a determinant step in establishing the scholar career, and they wish to extend the mandatory educational system by including children from age 2 to 6 in their preschool preparing. Has been shown repeatedly during the conference. In Europe, the mandatory education system starts from the age of 4 in Cyprus, Luxembourg, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Switzerland in only 14 cantons. There are also countries in which mandatory education commences at the age of 5, such as Greece, Latvia, Hungary, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, the United Kingdom, Turkey, and Switzerland. The World Bank's conference has been organized this Monday and Tuesday in Bucharest in the partnership with the Ministry of National Education, UNICEF, and the Foundation for an Open Society. Now, why not just, I don't know, let them at the door of the school right after birth and then pick them up when they're 18? Huh? What do you think about that?
Yeah, sounds good. Why not just breed them in test tubes and just have them educated at government facilities?
Yeah, and then just keep cloning them. Let's just ban sex because they create more unincluded children. Yeah. It should make sense,
Sounds
right?
very enlightened, very progressive.
Yeah, a lot of progress in that. Seriously? The only part that I'm willing to openly question is this one. Well, there is a problem that there are children that by the age of 3 don't have a vocabulary of over 1,000 words. Well, when I was a kid, I had a neighbor who by the age of 7 didn't have a vocabulary of 150 words. And he was coming from a very wealthy family, and they've spent untold amounts of money on treatments and so on, even treatments abroad, and they were very, very expensive to get treatments abroad back in those days. It was actually quite illegal in some cases, but anyway. And he had, like I said, 150, maybe 200 words by the age of 7. Then by the age of 8, he started talking, and they grudgingly enlisted him into the mandatory education system, and now the kid is I don't know, working somewhere in Silicon Valley in the United States. So so what is that with let's put kids in the schools at the age of 2 to get them pick up more words? Seriously?
Yeah,
how's that working?
Children just develop at very different speeds oftentimes, and all this sort of forcing all these children in these age cohorts is very problematic. I mean, it's problematic enough when you start at like 6 years old or something, but you're starting at 2 or 3 year olds. It's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, after communism fell, we started not caring too much about taking children.
Is it mine, or is your sound just going crazy?
Are you sure? It should be sounding great.
What's that? You say
is it on my end, or did Lucian just sort of drop half?
Oh, Lucian's here, man. He's doing just fine.
Okay, so it's my connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Well, as I was saying, right after communism fell, there was quite a huge sentiment of let's stop sending children so early at school, and not only here, but pretty much everywhere in the former Eastern Bloc, including the former DDR, because back in the days of the Eastern Bloc, it was not mandatory by law, but it was mandatory by practice to have children placed in institutions, in state institutions by the age of 2 or 3 maybe. Only very few people could afford to avoid doing that. And it wasn't considered a good thing. Now, how come we got rid of that, and now we have the progress coming in and telling us, no, you need to get back to 1980s because potato.
Yeah, because those children need to be indoctrinated earlier.
Yeah, unfortunately. Anyway, you had some news for us, Jan, right?
Yes, it's from TVNZ. It's an article called Girls More Likely to Cyberbully Study. I posted it in the chat. Oh, you already posted it?
They actually had to do a study for that?
Okay, here goes the article. Girls are more likely to be cyberbullies than boys, according to nearly 1,000 teachers in a nationwide study of schools. Victoria University researchers interviewed 860 teachers and senior staff from primary, intermediate, and secondary schools around New Zealand about their experiences with bullying. 60% of those surveyed thought girls were more likely to use technology to bully over boys, head researcher Dr. Vanessa Green said. Cyberbullying is, in a way, it does tend to leave itself to the types of behavior girls engage in, she said. So that's leaving people out, ostracism, exclusion. Dr. Green said the study showed bullying was a national problem that should be addressed. The internet has made bullying a more complex issue than it was 20 years ago, and as a result it requires a more sophisticated response, she said. The old methods may not be as effective as they were. We need to be thinking in a more creative way about how to address bullying. NetSafe director Martin Cocker said the risk of cyberbullying was underestimated in terms of the harm it could cause. I think people know it goes on, but don't appreciate just what the impact is, he said. Principals Federation President Phil Harding said bullying was regarded as verbal and physical, deliberate and ongoing attacks on other children. Nearly 70% of respondents thought bullying started between preschool years and the ages of 7 or 8, while just under half the respondents said cyberbullying was mainly conducted by 11 to 14-year-olds. The government is pushing through new laws to crack down on cyberbullying, including a sentence of up to 3 years in prison for inciting someone to commit suicide. A new offense of using a communications device to cause harm could also be introduced.
What?
Okay, so I'm not quite sure what to think about this article.
Yeah, I've got an opinion on all this.
Okay,
Look,
go ahead.
To me, bullying is reaching out and slapping someone up beside the head, or sitting behind the nerdy kid in class and flicking his ear. Okay, that's bullying. All right.
Yep.
I am sick and tired of these kids friggin' being taught that words hurt as much as the stones that can get thrown at them. We need.
And it's not even just words, like what they said here about the typical behaviors of girls. So that's leaving people out, ostracism, exclusion. So basically, if you're not someone's friend, you're bullying them.
That runs right into Sweden's no best friend rules.
So you're not allowed to have best friends, but you have to be friends with everyone.
Yep.
So fuck that. What we need to do is tell our damn kids to fucking suck it up. If someone calls them an asshole or some shit like whoop-de-doo, big fucking deal. I had to grow up. I was a little guy. I was a little fucking guy. When I graduated high school, all right, I was 5'4" and weighed 115 pounds. Okay?
That's 50 kilograms and 160 centimeters? Something like that?
Something like that. I was a little guy, okay? I had to put up with shit all the fucking time. And look what I'm doing now. I'm successful. I got the fuck over it. I moved on. I didn't allow people's words to make me go and slit my wrists or hang myself. Instead of focusing on the fucking people who are slinging mud verbally, why not focus on the kids' attitude on how they take it? Why not start identifying the fucking idiots who are going to try to slit their throats or go gun down 50 kids in the school because they were bullied. I was bullied, so I'm going to go kill a bunch of people. Oh, fuck you, man.
Well, I agree partially with that, but I do think that there's such a thing as verbal bullying, and if people are picking on you constantly, and if it's like it's always picking on one person, and if it's over a longer period of time and they just don't stop, that can be very damaging psychologically.
Well, this is where I think parents need to keep control over what the fuck their kids are doing on social media. I mean, seriously, it is the parents' responsibility to be sure to know what the hell their kids are doing online. And parents are not taking that responsibility. Instead, they want to push it off on every motherfucking legislator out there who is more than willing to shove his big dick up everybody else's ass for another power grab. And that's exactly what it is.
That's what happened in the United Kingdom with their porn filter. Oh my god, the children are gonna see porn, so we're gonna ban porn for the entire nation, and you need to register yourself on a state-approved list of being allowed to look at porn on the internet.
It's like the state's permit list.
That's the fucking parents' responsibility to control that shit. And obviously not enough parents are clamoring for the types of technological controls and making demands on the free market in order to control exactly what the fuck their kids are doing with all this tech. It is not the fucking government's responsibility to take care of this crap. So
well, let's be clear,
what we've done is we raised an entire fucking generation of spoiled brat fucking parents who are thinking too much of their me, instead of thinking about what the fuck is best for their kids and actually doing something constructive about it.
Yeah, because there are solutions on the market to address this issue. Some of the software available is even free and very intuitive, very easy to use. I mean, if you want to control what your kid is doing on the social media, you can do that fairly easy.
I don't know. For me, it's a simple matter of unplugging the goddamn computer. I mean, seriously. You walk in the door, you unplug the motherfucker. You put a lock on it. Put a plug lock on it. Fuck. I mean, how hard is it, guys? Don't give them a goddamn cell phone until they're old enough to fucking use. Or if you do give them one, friggin', you lock that motherfucker down. You make it one of those cheap-ass little jitterbug cell phones with the numbers twice the size as somebody's left nut, okay? And you let them carry one of those around for emergencies. Emergencies! So they've got a 911 button, or whatever the equivalent is over where you guys are living. And, you know, you've got a couple other numbers stored in it besides, like grandma, you know, or some shit. But stop giving these fucking kids access to the high-tech crap.
Yeah. And also, to carry on Jon's point, sometimes bullying can affect individuals. But instead of nationwide laws to crack down on cyberbullying, how about if you already have, and New Zealand definitely already has, and most schools in Europe also already have a psychologist in there, how about make the psychologist do his or her goddamn job and learn the kids to stand up for themselves?
Imagine that. Oh no, we can't have that because that would only introduce conflict. And oh no, they might actually learn to stand up to themselves, not just against their peers, but what if they learn to do it against authority? Oh God! Oh, if we teach people how to stand up for themselves, oh shit! That takes away our level of control. So, no, don't stand up for yourself. Just bend over. We're going to wipe your ass for you. And then we're going to fuck it and take what we want from you. And then we're going to send you on your way and you'll be happy. And we're going to do the same thing to everybody else and kiss all your owies. Come to mama, suck my fucking tit until you're the age of 18. It's fucking bullshit. Teach these goddamn little sniveling demon spawn to suck it the fuck up and stop being pussies about it. Verbal abuse? Bullshit. Fucking get them on the straight and narrow with that crap. If somebody hits you, report it. If somebody says something, so the fuck what?
Yeah. Anyway,
Jan, do you have any more news?
Yes, I have another piece of news, and it is from the BBC, and it's called "How Can Wikipedia Woo Women Editors?"
Oh my God! Go ahead.
God,
Yes.
here we go.
Very good. Women make up only 9% of Wikipedia editors. Educators say raising the number is key to improving the online encyclopedia and have started campaigns to do just that. At the Smithsonian American Art Museum, Depression-era artist Natalie Smith Henry's vivid depiction of a farm family hangs high on the wall. But until recently, Henry didn't exist, at least not according to Wikipedia. Then Chelsea Taffarolo, a student at American University, decided to write an article about her. It was Taffarolo's first post on the world's largest knowledge-sharing resource. Editors and activists are trying to address the root of what critics describe as a major information gap on Wikipedia by getting more women to post. Roughly 91% of Wikipedia's editors are men, according to a 2011 Wikimedia Foundation survey. Wikipedia purports to capture the sum of the world's knowledge, says Sarah Snyder, deputy chief of the Media and Technology Office at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. But it's not accurate to call it the world's knowledge if it's just half of the world's population, she says. It's just too good. Like,
You mean to tell me that that mathematics doesn't count because a fucking woman didn't think of a certain formula? Really?
The amount of fallacies in that is so astounding.
The physical laws of the universe no longer apply because a woman didn't have an input. Hello, gravity.
So Wikipedia is only valid if everyone in the world writes on it, because otherwise it doesn't capture all the world's knowledge. I mean, most of the
what?
I mean, most men aren't Wikipedia editors, but okay, let's continue with the article. Wikipedia hosts 4.4 million articles and consistently ranks as one of the top 10 most visited websites in the world. Yet a Wikimedia study in 2011 revealed a fairly uniform picture of the writers behind Wikipedia. The average Wikipedian is a white, educated, computer-savvy man who lives in the US or Europe. That disparity means that a lot of perspectives are being left out, says Adrian Wadowitz, a fellow at Occidental College who also serves on the board of the Wiki Education Foundation.
Wait, is this the same Occidental College that came up with the anonymous online rape reporting form?
Yep.
It might be the very same.
Imagine that.
It is. What a shock.
When Wadowitz showed Wikipedia's main page to her class one day, she found that the women featured were largely sexualized or portrayed as victims of a crime, while people of color were represented as perpetrators of a crime.
Maybe
For example, the list of pornographic actresses from the 1950s to the present is more than 3 times longer than the list of notable Native American women. Maybe that's because there were more of those, like, notable Native American women. What are they? I mean, like, here's a comprehensive list of Native American women I know. Share.
Sure. I mean, how hard is it? Look.
How many are there? Honestly, like.
I honestly have no idea how many there are, but the fact that you've got this idiot who's going to bitch about the fact there's not enough Native American women on there. Well, why the fuck doesn't she go and put some Native American women on? I mean, how hard? That's the whole point of Wikipedia.
But that would be hard work.
Oh God!
And they have rules, James.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. Are oppression.
That's right. I just got to tell you guys something. There's this one piece of architecture made by this specific architect. It's listed on Wikipedia. I forgot what the name of it was, but this architect made this piece of architecture, had absolutely, beautiful stuff going on with it. At the bottom of the fucking Wikipedia page, some numbnut actually wrote on the feminist perspective of a piece of architecture. Had absolutely nothing to do.
Maybe the tower was too phallocentric.
But there was actually a feminist perspective section, and they were practically one step away from calling the architecture itself a part of rape apologia.
So the skyscrapers raping the sky and so on.
They're interpreting somebody's architecture as being anti-feminist, essentially, or anti-woman. Although why people want to conflate that crap is beyond me. But still, is this what they mean by perspective? I don't know of any real perspective available on things like mathematics or
differential equations.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
I think those are quite patriarchal.
I mean, is it just, Jean, just because you're over there in Germany, are your equations going to be any different than mine? Do you have a different perspective on the quadratic formula than I do? Are we going to come out with something different?
I think it's very Germanic, the quadratic formula.
Go figure.
Okay, but let's continue with the article. It also has more names on it than a list of female poets and sportswomen combined. To limit inaccurate or frivolous content, Wikipedia has notability and verifiability standards for what merits an article, meaning a person is notable only if he or she has received significant coverage in reliable sources that are independent on the subject. But some Wikipedians say those guidelines make it harder for many female figures to attain pages, because historically they didn't receive as much publicity or recognition as their male counterparts, leaving a much shallower pool of available reference material. Minutes after Taffarolo posted her article on Henry, a Wikipedia editor nominated it for speedy deletion because the artist didn't appear to be significant, despite her work being on display at the Smithsonian. How oppressive. Taffarolo gathered more references and proved why Henley deserved the page, but she said the experience was intimidating and discouraging.
You mean they asked for evidence?
Yes.
Oh,
it's incredible.
God. Anyway,
just because she's a woman, obviously.
What a shock.
Increasing the number of women writers is the key to correcting bias and scarcity of information, especially on content related to women, says Andrew Lee, author of The Wikipedia Revolution. Lee, a veteran Wikipedian, teaches a class on Wikipedia at American University. His students visit a museum of cultural institution once a week and collaborate with curators and historians to improve articles. He points to experiences like that of Taffarolo, one of his students, as a big reason why more women don't edit. Wikipedia is not only an unwelcoming place to female editors, it's unwelcoming to most people, Lee says. It's an old-school online community, and it has a tradition of verbal fighting and verbal debate. In the best cases, that leads to things that inform and inspire. In the worst cases, that lead to people feeling intimidated and uncomfortable. Well, maybe the purpose of Wikipedia is not to make people feel comfortable, but to find out accurate information and remove inaccurate information and so on, but more feelings.
Yep.
Okay, article continues. Several groups have worked to cultivate a more congenial atmosphere. Wiki Women's Collaborative and The Tea House, a virtual tavern on Wikipedia, are forums to help support novice Wikipedia editors. Snyder of the Smithsonian says Wikipedia's gender gap reflects disparities in the wider culture. When you look around the world at large, you see in public forums that men's voices dominate the conversation, she says. We do see women needing more encouragement and invitation to voice their knowledge and expertise than men do. Men feel more confident doing that without the extra encouragement. Women also have less free time than men. Of course. According to recent studies, American women spend an hour more per day doing unpaid housework and caretaking duties as compared to men. For many women, allocating time for Wikipedia may not be a practical priority. Some Wikipedians say gender disparities in science, technology, engineering, and math might make the coding and markup language sometimes involved in editing seem daunting to potential editors. but fields dominated by women also provide a natural stepping stone toward Wikipedia. For instance, 67% of journalism degrees, 81% of library and information science degrees, and 86% of museum studies degrees are awarded to women. Tafarolo is studying communications and now says she'd like to contribute more to Wikipedia. She's proud of her patron Henry. There's so much information missing, she says. I'm glad I'm part of the group to help fill in the blanks. How wonderful.
How oppressive can that be? Absolutely
the
shocking.
same standards apply to men and women, and that's oppression.
I mean, there are most of the editors on Wikipedia that I know them by their username. You can't even know whether they're men or women in the first place. So I don't know how they get those statistics in there. And also,
some survey, I guess they just asked people.
Whatever. And seriously, I mean, they've demanded for evidence, and that's intimidating and discouraging. Really? Really?
Yeah, it may well be that sort of the Wikipedia's culture is maybe more suitable to most men, but it doesn't mean that it's somehow oppressive or something. I mean, it may just mean that most men are more suitable to being Wikipedia editors. And I mean, Wikipedia is doing a good job. It's a very reliable sort of encyclopedia and is a great source of knowledge. It doesn't need the. I mean, it's already doing great. It doesn't need to change like that. You don't. If you sort of place the focus on making it welcoming and sparing the feelings of the editors and so on, that just means that the quality of the content is going to suffer.
It basically turns it into a blog instead of a wiki, instead of an encyclopedia.
Yep.
Well, again, what Wikipedia needs to change is to get rid of all the feminist editors. Trust me, that's gonna improve the quality quite a lot.
Yeah.
And what James has told earlier about adding the feminist perspective on the architecture of something. Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia is already quite sort of pro-feminist. If you read the articles on feminism and compare them to articles on men's rights, then you already see quite a strong feminist bias. And it's especially strong in the German Wikipedia, where it's like the English one is biased, but the German one is like turned up like 10 times as much. It's really incredible how much sort of slander there is of any sort of men's rights advocates, even the most moderate ones. It's like one paragraph sort of biography, and then there's like 3 paragraphs like criticism. Everyone calling them right-wing, fringe, Nazi, whatever. Even if it's like a sort of normal, regular, moderate people.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about last week. It's basically moving the middle. I mean, asserting that the moderate position is the other extreme, and then basically move the entire debate into the real extremist territory. That's what's happening.
It's not really that. It's that they're just sort of taking these like men's rights advocates and then just sort of quoting from feminists to call them extremists and so on, or maybe like quoting things that they wrote out of context to make them look like they're some sort of right-wing lunatics or something like that.
Yep. Well, since our topic is rape culture, maybe we should talk about some false rape culture. This is coming from the US, but the guy involved is from 60 kilometers from where I am, so yeah. Hosu acquitted, juror convinced he was 100% innocent, from lowhued.com. I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, a jury Thursday acquitted Alexandru Hosu, a friend of Putnam County District Attorney Adam Levy, of child rape charges in a case that raised questions over Levy's degree of involvement and spurred a related defamation case. Hosu, 36, Levy's former live-in personal trainer, had been jailed a year, accused of twice raping a 13-year-old girl in one night in 2000. 2010 at her Brewster home where he lived while dating her mother. Hosu was represented by Levy's brother-in-law Daniel Mentzer, cried and smiled after the verdict was announced in Putnam County Court in Carmel. A Romanian national, he remains in custody because of federal immigration detainer. He was acquitted of 2 counts of first-degree rape, 2 of second-degree rape, and a charge of child endangerment. To anyone who watched this trial, the verdict was a foregone conclusion, said Mentzer, who represented Hosu along with the lawyer Richard Ferrante. To have to go through what that man went through is inhumane, Mentzer said. Where does this man go to get his reputation back? Hosu was arrested last March by Putnam County Sheriff's deputies, who Mentzer claimed didn't investigate the case until Hosu was already in custody. Putnam County Sheriff Donald Smith and Levy have an ongoing feud, and Levy later filed a $5 million defamation lawsuit against Smith over statements the sheriff made about the case. The case attracted a significant media attention after Levy, the son of TV's Judge Judy Scheindlin is the name, recused his office, but then seemingly tried to influence the defense and reportedly disclosed grand jury information to one of Hosu's prior lawyers. Conduct Westchester County prosecutors deemed potentially criminal. Levy also pays tens of thousands of dollars at one point to fund Hosu's defense, despite requests by several politicians to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Levy's conduct. Governor Andrew Cuomo took no action. Levy didn't attend the trial, but his confidential assistant, Lori Maney, sat through most of it, and investigator from his office, Henry Lopez, attended portions of it. Levy's stepbrother, Gregory Scheindlin, a lawyer and former prosecutor, also sat through most of the trial. With no forensic evidence, prosecutors were left to rely heavily on the girl's testimony. We were confident in our prosecution of this case as evidenced by the length of the jury's deliberation and the fact that they were initially deadlocked, said Lucian Chalfan, a spokesman for Westchester District Attorney Janet DeFore. We respect their verdict and appreciate their service, Levy declined to comment. The accuser's aunt, who testified at the trial, said the teenager was told of the verdict, but still processing it. Was told of the verdict Thursday by a school social worker. The aunt said that the teen was likely very upset inside, but still processing it. She's a mature, intelligent young lady, she said. She understands the power of reasonable doubt, but it doesn't change her story. Juror Debbie Silman, 57, of Carmel, a coordinator of volunteer services at a psychiatric hospital, said the panel was 10-2 in favor of acquittal Monday and 11-1 since then. She said one male juror held out, saying he found the teenager credible. Silman said jurors used the calendar and phone records to convince the holdout juror that and rule out dates the attack could have happened. The man is innocent, period, she said. I have no doubt whatsoever he was 100% innocent. I thought she was a little liar. The sniffing, I think, was an act. The girl had testified that Hosu choked her and raped her, leaving her in excruciating pain with blood all over her bed. The defense, however, had contended the girl's account was implausible and that she had a number of potential motives to fabricate a story. Juror Gwen Wilkinson, 32, a Brewster, a footwear buyer, said male jurors were asked during deliberation if they ever had sex for roughly 3 hours straight. They said it's near impossible, she said. As for the 17-minute control phone call the girl made to Hosu confronting him with the rape allegation as he was being secretly recorded by investigator, Wilkinson said, I thought he showed he actually cared for the kids by asking how the girl and her brother had been doing since their mother's death. Hosu, she said, sounded absolutely shocked by the girl's accusations. The jury took it really, really seriously, as they should have, said juror Bob Foss. They gave it the respect this entire case was due. No one took this lightly in any case, and we worked the process as every one of us was supposed to. So, here's this man from Dej, going to the United States to get a better life, and now he's already 13 months in jail, or at least he has been 13 months in jail, despite being more than clear that he has done nothing wrong. I guess the question is, who's gonna pay for those 13 months? And despite the fact that he was still in jail then when this article was written, as far as I know, the day before yesterday he was released. He stayed a little bit more in jail because his visa expired and was considered an illegal immigrant. But I mean, his visa expired because he was in jail because that little cunt lied and the state believed her. So
yeah, it's a bit ridiculous.
I mean, seriously? The offense of becoming an illegal immigrant occurred because of the state. not because of him.
So we locked you up so you couldn't leave the country or get your visa renewed, and because of that, we're going to lock you up some more. I mean,
what the fuck,
really
USA? USA, go home. You're drunk. I mean, no.
Yeah, no, it's fucking ridiculous, guys.
Given the fact that he's a friend of the DEA, I really, really hope he uses his influence there and sue the hell out of the accuser and their family and take them all of their money. And no, I'm not joking. I mean, seriously? Spending over a year in jail because potato? And unfortunately, this guy is the lucky one. I mean, he was a friend with the former DEA, and he had a funded defense. Yeah. What if he had been the regular immigrant in the United States? Not necessarily from Romania, but the regular immigrant. He might have spent more than 7-8 years in jail, probably even more. I mean, really?
Yeah, and so much for being innocent until proven guilty. I mean, this guy was locked up in jail for a year. Without any conviction or anything.
Yeah. And he was kept in jail even after being proven innocent.
So if you're innocent, but we still lock you up.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well, here's a piece of news that's very interesting, and the rest of them will probably be only mentioned scarcely, or I don't know. Or maybe mention them in the second part. But this one is very, very interesting. Coming from Madame Le Figaro.fr from France, divorce interdit de démanger sans l'autorisation de son ex. Divorce forbidden to move without the permission of the ex. A bill of the Socialist Ecologist Party called Parental Authority and the Interests of the Child has been put to the table in the National Assembly in France. Separated couples with children will in the future have to ask permission from their ex-spouse if the child is to move or change schools. This is one of the leading elements of the proposal put forth by the ecologists. As promised after announcing the indefinite postponement of the family bill in early February, family issues are now back on the agenda through this specific legislation. Arguing that the rights of the family members must adapt to the new family configurations, this proposal that the parliamentary socialists hope will vote upon in early May implies to provide practical answers and legal tools to ensure the interests of the child in everyday situations such as accident of life, according to the explanatory memorandum. Thus, any active parental authority, whether of a common or significant nature, requires the consent of the other parent when they have joint parental authority, the proposal specifies. It's not innovative, it's education, says Charlotte Robe, a lawyer in BWG Associates, that's a lawyer house, and a member of a working group of 12 Parisian lawyers who inspired the parliamentarians. Clearly, the law as it is now is not sufficiently clear. Some parents overstep their rights. Alongside the usual acts, such as routine health care, the bill calls significant acts, things like changing the residence or school. And these are actions that require an express agreement of the other parent in case of joint exercise of parental authority. Express agreement can, for example, come through an email. An exception, however, is placed in cases of violence, the law saying that the agreement of the other parent is not required when that parent was convicted either as author or as an accomplice of a crime against the other parent, explained the proposal. Convicted, not accused. This is big. The objective of this proposal is to end the policy of fait accompli. Moving many kilometers away without informing the other side simply is unacceptable. This situation often results in a referral to the judge of the family court, says Charlotte Robe. But isn't this new provision impeding the free movement of one spouse? The idea is to prevent removals, transfers, expatriation, but is not to prevent the removals, transfers, or expatriation, but to anticipate or to have recourse to mediation. In the cases of conflict, it will still be the judge to decide, she continues. Another question, couldn't this provision be used as a weapon in a conflict situation? Well, some issues remain complicated despite the energy and intelligence the people involved have put in, says Charlotte Robe simply. More generally, the bill is part of a desired pattern to have practices of joint exercise of parental authority. Thus, the idea of alternating residence that Senator wanted but was rejected by the Ayrault government. Ayrault was the former Prime Minister of France until April 1st, April 2nd. Anyway, this idea of alternating residence is now approached from another angle. Members want to end the binary choice between the alternating residence or residence at the home of one parent, which is a source of conflict. The principle is to fix the residence at the home of each parent to translate their equality. We must get out of this stigmatizing dichotomy and speak of the residence of the child, insists Charlotte Robb. There is thus a change in terminology. But this idea calls for a major change in attitudes. The implication of altering residence is often apparent to a claim based on personal consideration. Many fathers ask for the principal to position themselves in relation to children, says the lawyer. We tend to associate the residence at one time to the exclusive exercise of authority at that particular time, she says. The rights and obligation of parents should not be punctual but permanent until the child reaches the age of majority. The members of the parliament also propose a fine of up to 10,000 euros maximum for the parent that prevents the joint exercise of parental authority. Interesting. Too statist?
Yeah.
That is interesting indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is the whole notion that basically the state decides what is in the child's interest, but you know, that's just the way it goes these days.
And it's also the state who decides what exactly is the express agreement. It's also the state who decides how far is far enough, because it says here in one of the paragraphs that I jumped over because it's too difficult to translate in real time. It basically says that if the child lives across the other, on the other part of the world, then express agreement is no longer necessary, whilst saying that moving many kilometers away is unacceptable. So basically it's the state deciding how many kilometers is too many kilometers. And what the fuck?
I mean, the correct solution would be to just have an agreement of things like that in a marriage contract.
Yeah.
But that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So that would mean the state has to give up all that power and so on. That's unlikely to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wondered, and I've always wondered, why don't we have marriages subjected to the normal contract law? I mean, we get a contract between each other, and that's the law of our marriage. Period.
Yeah, it should be like that, but of course, the politicians and so on, they want to exercise control over the family, and marriage is a very good tool for that. So
that and it would mean people might actually have to follow rules.
Yeah, that's oppression. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a few more articles that are basically examples of how France, for instance, is a rape culture, so we're gonna leave them for the second part of the show. Meanwhile, until the second part, let's listen to a very, very nice little Hungarian song from a Hungarian punk band that was originally called Picsok, as in the cunt, in the 1990s. Then they changed their name to something harder to pronounce and harder to translate, basically Hétköznapi Csalódások. And we're gonna listen to a song from an album called Dollar Hatalom Porno, Dollar Powers and Porn. And the name of the song is Feminista. So Hétköznapi Csalódások, Feminista.
Nymphomániás vagy meleg, szabad nőnek született. Nem csak két mell és vagina, és fél botaniba, hanem önálló
All right, we're back. We have listened to Hejtke Oznavi Csalódások Feminista, a very, very nice song who pissed off all of the feminists and has been pissing off all of the feminists in Hungary for 13 years now. And they once campaigned to have it removed from being talked about on TV and something like that. Fortunately, they have failed. However, they haven't failed in bringing up the Istanbul Convention in Hungary. Anyway, as of this moment, listeners are invited to call in. The call-in number from outside of the U.S. is 001-214-666-6148. I repeat, 001-214-666-6148. Obviously from the United States without 001 in front of it, so 214-666-6148. Until someone calls in, since we have the topic of rape culture, and I said in the opening rant that if you're looking for culture du in Google, the second most searched thing is culture du viol, which is rape culture in French. So, according to the feminist lobby, France is a rape culture. Yet somehow, in that patriarchally oppressive, rape culture-oriented country that's neighboring my co-host's country, Germany, so in that horrible place to be a woman, we get an article like this. Madame Le Figaro, Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, l'ascension par les femmes. Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, the rise of women. The former government spokesperson and the current Minister of Women's Rights, Najat Belkacem-Vallaud, managed to capitalize on her fight for equality and inherited Wednesday a larger portfolio, the Ministry of Women's Rights, the Cities, Youth and Sports. And yes, the French even have the Ministry of the Cities, which is a rather new concept. It used to be only a governmental department, and it's basically the ministry dealing with certain urban areas deemed sensible. Don't try to understand that. Anyway, back to the article. The struggle for equality between men and women can bring new policies. Promoted in the new government, Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, it seems she managed to accomplish a very difficult challenge to highlight the cause of women, which until now was not really a priority in France, and reconcile and join opinions on a subject that is sometimes cringeworthy. Only sometimes? Anyway. From the beginning of her delegation, she fought to pass a law on sexual harassment in the workplace, enthusiast Olga Tostiansky, the founder of the Laboratory of Equality, which is a French feminist NGO. Now, her name is Olga Tostiansky, another Ukrainian feminist in France? Anyway, then she struggled in every way to promote equality between men and women. She was placed on the banks of Sciences Po Paris in 2007 and named a spokesperson on Ségolène Royal and the spokesperson of François Hollande in 2012. And Najat Belkacem-Vallaud was also revealed in February as the most popular minister of Ayrault government. Wednesday, she inherited an expanded portfolio, taking over the city department previously assumed by François Lamy, and youth and sports, formerly led by Minister Valérie Fourneyron. In May 2012 already, The Guardian presented it as the new face of France. In 2 years, the former spokesman of the government has not give up her smiling charisma and her natural authority, says Mariette Sinot, political scientist and author of Women and Power Under the Fifth Republic. Now, hold on a second. They're reporting her success in the terms of how The Guardian describes it? So
don't you know the point of politicians is not to make good laws or govern well, it's just to appeal to voters and to the media.
Yeah, but why specifically The Guardian? I mean, the British press has published quite a lot of critical things, including The Guardian, by the way, about how France is being governed. So why report strictly on one or two positive coverages given by The Guardian, and only by The Guardian, by the way? Really?
Because feminism.
Yeah, because feminism. And also this lady, Mariette Sinot, political scientist, and also author of Women and Power Under the Fifth Republic. Now, if that's her most notable book, and I believe it is, Women and Power Under the Fifth Republic, I don't think that's a political scientist. I believe that's a leftist activist.
Yeah, the two are often one and the same.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the article. Najat Belkacem-Valou bet much on changing attitudes on the law to advance women's rights. On voluntary interruption of pregnancy, for instance, the removal of the concept of distress had no practical impact, but served as an announcement effect to fully reaffirm the right to abortion. Wait, what? So we acknowledge that what she did had no practical impact, that it was totally unnecessary and wasted taxpayers' resources, but served as an announcement effect to fully reaffirm the right to abortion. Are these people out of their fucking minds?
Wait,
if you waste money for women...
I'm about to do something totally unnecessary that's going to waste everybody's time. Hold on. Okay. Unzipping my pants. Okay, I have just reaffirmed that my Frankenbeans are present.
You're part of you're so part of the rape culture, James.
My dick is in the room. We have reaffirmed that, and I have just wasted our listeners' time to let everyone know.
So basically what they're saying is it's good to waste money on women because it shows that women are important. So whenever we spend money doing anything, it's good as long as it's for women.
But this one wasn't even for women. It was totally useless. It didn't bring any benefit whatsoever to women. It didn't bring any benefit whatsoever to the society or to the state or to anyone for that matter.
Yeah, but it was supposed to.
No.
The intention counts and so on. So it's just a fully general argument for government spending. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. Circular arguments works because circular argument works because circular... What I hope to see, at least in the next 20, 30 years, what I would love to see this shift from arguing the intentions versus arguing the results. I mean, the road to hell is really, really paved with a lot of good intentions. I mean, Enver Hoxha was very, very well intended at first in Albania when before the execution started and before shit hit the fan. I mean, he helped codifying the language. That was a good intention. Now, sure, then executions followed, and then the first and only atheist state in the world, and then more executions and more murders. But hey, the intentions. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but the problem is always with politics that people don't think rationally about it, and they don't need to. There's no reason to. There's no point to it. You don't gain anything from thinking rationally about politics. If you you cross in the wrong place in the election booth, then you don't get personally punished for that or rewarded for it if you vote for the right candidate. So you can as well just go with your gut feelings and just do whatever feels right. And if spending money on women feels right, then we can spend money on women. Whether there's actually improvement for women is secondary.
It's basically how you put it almost a year ago about the price of irrationality, right?
Yeah.
It pretty much makes sense, yeah. Anyway, back to France and this ludicrous article. Najat Belkacem-Valou was not an activist involved in feminism. That has therefore contributed in her not putting a feminist stance that nobody wants to hear, but a stance of a neutral and pragmatic minister. This was a more apt way to seduce French discourse and strategy. Now here's a huge glimpse of honesty in there.
Yeah.
So, in other words, Najat Belkacem-Valou lied through her teeth, and this contributed to her not being perceived as a feminist, because we already know that nobody wants to hear a feminist. They admit it. But she seemed like a neutral and pragmatic minister, and this was a good way to seduce the French discourse and strategy.
Oh God, I can have so much fun with that. Where shall I start?
How do you seduce the discourse?
That sound very rapey.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. She made people think things. Oh God, she seduced them with their
Made them
words.
think things without their consent.
Without their consent. That's right. Isn't that
Penetrating her
mind rape?
Yeah, penetrating them with her ideas.
Exactly.
It's culinary rape culture, as October says in the chat room.
Oh my God. What is wrong with these people? I mean, we've got feminists out there that are screaming at the top of their lungs that if a man does something to make a woman feel horny, he's a rapist. Because he just controlled her in one way, shape, or form. So if I take my shirt off, for instance, and some chick swoons, I need to be castrated and put in jail, according to feminists. So the only time you can fuck a woman is if she doesn't want it, right? or if you haven't made her want it. And this is in applying the same standard of logic to what this bitch has done in her position. She should be put in jail.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, I can't abstain myself from noticing the huge glimpse of honesty in there. I mean, they basically admit that one, nobody wants to hear a feminist stance, and two, that you have to lie in order to convince people to accept a feminist stance, and three, that this woman, it's exactly what she did in order to make people listen to her, and apparently she was successful because she was the most popular minister from the previous cabinet. So, what? Back to the article. According to Olga Trostiansky, the decision to financially penalize companies, private companies, that do not have an equality plan is a case in point of such strategy. The reform is innovative because it does not penalize wage inequality, but only those who do not follow the plan. This is a whole learning of equality on which is based this sanction. If the minister has sometimes been disappointing to feminists, in the words of Olga Trostiansky, because for her not always going far enough or fast enough with reforms to achieve equality in the workplace today, this is a new function that is mostly viewed with a laudative eye. So, it's innovative because it penalizes companies that don't make gynocentrism as their main policy. But it's still disappointing for feminists because it's not going far enough and fast enough, and it's not actually addressing the issue of equality in the workplace.
It's not equal enough.
Yeah, not equal enough, yeah. What? I mean, if I were to write these things about Mrs. Najat Belkacem-Valou, all of the fembots would be there claiming that I'm slandering the poor little French minister. But what makes this article absolutely great is that the feminists themselves basically write exactly what I would write about her, and that is to say that she's a lying cunt.
Except being a lying cunt is good if it's for good cause for feminism.
Of course, you're right. Being a lying cunt is sometimes in the help of progress. And yes, indeed.
Well,
yeah, you're right.
This is the case where they honestly believe that the ends justify the means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I've been there, and I don't like how that belief looks like when it's imposed too many times. Anyway, last two sentences in the article, they do indeed fear that her new position will dilute the fight for women, although this could also lead to an interdepartmental work being undertaken. She won a lot of admiration by putting so much energy to the task. She should not be hindered in keeping on pursuing those goals by her new responsibilities. As in the field of women's rights, there is still work to do, says the same leftist activist, political scientist. So basically now they're concerned that she's no longer only the head of one portfolio, the Ministry for Women's Rights. Now she's the head of 4 portfolios, and that might dilute her work on the advancing the cause of women. So, but basically what this activist, this political scientist, is suggesting is basically, Miss Valo, please bring feminism in the new ministries that you've taken over. I mean, I don't know, bring feminism into sports. And I'm thinking, since she's the Ministry of Cities, which, as I said, it basically administers the problematic suburbs, the banlieues, as they call it in France. I'm thinking of, I don't know, let's give her some ideas. The first idea that I have for her is, I don't know, affirmative action of poor women in the filthy suburbs. I mean, there aren't enough poor women living in there. Maybe a governmental program could help. What do you think about that?
I think it's an excellent idea.
I mean, it brings substantive equality, doesn't it?
Yeah, very substantive. Very progressive as well.
Oh, yeah, much progress on that. Seriously, and this is a country where I'm supposed to believe that the second most important cultural issue in that society is culture de la viol, the rape culture. That's a rape culture. If that's how a rape culture looks like, then what the fuck Uganda is about? Seriously. I mean, what? If this is a rape culture, then then we should probably not even start daring to mention places like Congo. I mean, even the fucking Guardian admitted that there is a problem in there. But hey, let's read something from another rape culture. That is the Kingdom of Norway. Now, in Norway, there is a huge problem with the rape culture in there. I mean, there is systemic rape in Norway, or so is the feminist lobby saying. This just came out today. I'm not going to read it entirely, but anyway. Kvinne dømt til 9 måneders fengsel for sex med 14-åring. A woman was sentenced to 9 months in jail for having sex with a 14-year-old. Now, the title is a bit misleading. What she did exactly was to approach the boy's father and mislead his attention, and then approach the 14-year-old boy and his sister, and she had sex with him multiple times, and then introduced both himself and his sister to hashish, tablets, and so many other I would argue dangerous drugs, especially for a 14-year-old. I have no problem with people doing hashish when they're adults, as long as they're not caught, of course. But giving hashish to 14-year-olds, well, that's a huge problem. Now, the kid is 25 years old, and as a result of those events, he developed a drug problem that he only got away from 2 years ago after extensive treatment. And he finally reported the crime in 2012 after he started his own family. And what's even more interesting is that this was amongst the very few times when the court actually dismissed some of the usual bullshit, because as usual the perpetrator made allegations of violence and abuse. I mean, I don't know, what did she say? The 14-year-old abused me? I mean, I took him, I gave him hashish and then he abused me? I mean, what the fuck? And this was one of the rare instances when the courts actually dismissed that. Now, you should remember also that the age of consent in Norway is 16. So, how is this a rape culture? How is this a rape culture? And probably the most important question is, what makes the regular people believe that this is a rape culture?
I don't think regular people believe that as a rape culture. It's just a sort of belief that some feminists keep touting. But if you ask like the average person in the street, they'll tell you, of course not.
I used to be sure about that until I've started encountering quite a lot of regular people. Now, of course, the great advantage is that the regular people can be convinced that there is no rape culture, unlike the ideologues. But I actually found increasingly many regular people believing this bullshit, because now this bullshit is all over the media, and they actually believe that there is a rape culture pretty much everywhere in Europe. And it's obvious that there isn't, but what makes these kinds of people believe that there is? I mean, it can't be just that they've read once in the newspaper. What is the driving force of that?
Well, I mean, if that's really the case, because I don't really see that in Germany, but if that's the case in other places in Europe, then I think it's really mostly the feminist-influenced media, because if you hear these things on the media day in and day out, then eventually most people will start believing them, even if there's very little evidence of that in their own lives.
So you're basically saying that it's just a case of constantly repeating the same lie until everyone believes it?
Yeah, I think so. Like I also used to believe some of these lies. Like I used to believe that there was a gender pay gap, for instance, that was due to discrimination, because I've just read that so many times, seen it so many times on television and so on. So I never really thought about it too much, but I just sort of accepted that was the case.
It's not just media. It's the fucking authorities, okay, who are in bed with all these feminist asshats. So consider all the authorities as well.
Yeah, definitely, in schools and universities and so on.
Yeah, the corridors of power, basically. Yeah, but unlike the gender pay gap, which is also a lie, but at least it has, 10% truth in it. I mean, yeah, there is a gender pay gap. The only problem is that it's not due to discrimination. But in this case, it doesn't even have that half-truth in it. I mean, there is no rape culture, period. It never was, and it's not. And it doesn't exist. At least not in Europe.
Hey guys, I'm gonna bring Iron John onto the show. Give me just one moment here. Oh boy. Oh, wrong one. Here we go.
John?
Alright, Iron John, you are on the air.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I think I get what the feminists are doing with the rape culture thing and why people might be inclined to believe it. It's really very simple once you uncover what they're doing, but it's not something that's immediately obvious. What this is, as crazy as this is going to sound, and of course we know the source for crazy, this is guilt by association. They are trying to get people, their readers, their listeners, whoever are dumb enough to listen to them, to believe that they are already part of something. They are already part of a culture that permits, encourages, condones rape, so they'll feel guilty. And once they feel guilty, then they can manipulate them into doing what they want.
So it's like original sin or something.
Yes, precisely.
A rehashed version of original sin? Yes. Yeah, it might make sense, especially here in Europe. It might make sense because there are so many countries that you don't have a guilt narrative to use to fuck them in the ass. I mean, in the US you had the racial liberal guilt. In Germany you have the National Socialist liberal guilt. But in Italy, I mean, you don't have racial
Well,
narrative.
yeah, fascism and so on.
Yeah, not really. I mean, there weren't enough victims, and of course, it's politically incorrect to talk too much about the Italian fascism because they appreciate the Gini index, which was developed by a fascist Italian. So no, not really. And also, you have even smaller countries. I don't know, Estonia, for instance. How do you insert a guilt narrative in Estonia? I mean, those guys were under the boot of Stalinism until 1991. You can't create a guilt narrative in there. They've held no slaves. They oppressed nobody, definitely. Or in Finland, or in so many other places.
Or Liechtenstein.
Yeah, or Liechtenstein, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's always global warming and so on.
Well, remember that this concept that they're pushing is not just limited to Europe. It's anywhere they exist. They'll try and get as much mileage out of it as they can. So, of course, we have places like North America as well, where the feminists talk about rape culture constantly, all day, every day on campuses. If it hasn't gotten to Europe yet, I'm sure it'll get there. It'll probably won't be as successful. Given their history as compared to ours. My guess is they're trying to equate rape culture with something like prejudice. Racial prejudice.
Just out of curiosity, how does this look in China? No, seriously. I mean, we already know how it looks in India, but have we ever really taken a look at what this sort of thing looks like in China?
No, not really. I mean,
no.
I've never heard of something similar of the concept of rape culture being spouted anywhere in there. The only piece of feminist activism that I've seen in there was to persuade the Chinese government to fund some Western-oriented feminist activism, as it was, for instance, the Beijing Feminist Conference in 1995, which basically created all of the shit that we have now in Europe, such as the Istanbul Convention and so on. And also, the biggest amount of feminist activism that I've seen oriented to China was about lifting the status of the so-called leftover women. I think you guys also covered something along that lines on your show, James.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we sure
and,
did.
And it's also the fact to lift the ban on one-child policy and and change the cultural preferences to having sons instead of daughters, which is not really a cultural inclinance, but rather a state-imposed preference because, the state prefers to have more boys because those will not give birth to even more children.
Well, they're more effective on the battlefield.
And yes, of course.
There's also the tradition that sons are required to support their parents when they're old, but daughters are not. So if you only have one child and you want to have some security in old age, then you'd better have a son.
Yeah, especially when it was the one-child policy. Now things have been relaxed, and there are increasingly more families that have at least two. But I mean, for 50 years, 60 years, it was only one child and period, and there were even some very horrible instances of forced abortions and so on. So yeah, around these issues, I've heard of feminist activism in China, but not around the concept of rape culture. So I don't know if it even exists in the Chinese culture, this concept, at least not yet.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that from China, but yeah. It's also in Germany, it's not really very widespread. Like most people in Germany have never heard of that term. I mean, feminists talk about it to some extent, but it hasn't really reached sort of the wider culture yet.
Is it being taught in universities?
I don't know. I've never seen anything like that in universities, but it's probably like if you go into like gender studies or something, then certainly. But I don't know about other courses.
Yeah, because in France, this bullshit has leaked outside of the gender studies classrooms. Because as long as it's confined in there, yeah, it's mostly harmless. But once it gets out, like it happened in Sweden and in France and the UK and the entire North America, once it happens then then shit hits the fan, basically. Especially when you have it in, in journalism. I mean, that asshat from the article you read on was saying that 80% of journalism degrees are earned by women. Well, yeah, that's probably true. And in journalism classes, they even have a curricula about sex bias and about rape culture and things like that. So yeah, and then that's how it reaches the wider culture. So as long as it's confined in the gender studies classrooms, it should be okay. It should be okay. It should not affect the average Joes and Janes.
No, I mean there's of course plenty of feminist indoctrination in German universities, but I don't think that's much about rape culture, in particular.
That's interesting. Why are the feminists in Europe less inclined to march on that? Because if we discount the United Kingdom, Sweden, and France, and Spain, all the other places are less inclined to march on that. It's not visible in the Netherlands. It's not visible, as you said, in Germany. It's definitely not visible in Italy. It's not visible anywhere in Eastern Europe. So why are they less inclined in here to march on it?
I think I can answer that as well.
Please.
I think what they're trying to do, the ultimate goal is not just shame and cooperation. Their ultimate goal is control. They want people to cede control of a culture to them. So how do they get that? They get that by getting people to doubt. They plant a seed of doubt. And how they do this is they pretend to know something that their listeners and readers don't know. We know about rape culture. We know this is a problem. Did you know it's a problem? You didn't? Oh, well, you better let us handle things then. We'll make everything okay.
Yeah, but how does it explain the difference between countries?
My guess is it's a very slow-moving plan. They are trying to make it seem like this is such a big problem it can only be handled in small parts.
That and they will say that some countries are more resistant to understanding their patriarchal privilege, and that is why they can't spread it all at once.
Actually, that makes sense. I've recently heard a Romanian feminist expressing herself exactly in those terms. That we're too resistant to this. We need more progress. We need to wait. It'll gonna happen, but there's not enough progress yet, and things like that. Yeah. It actually makes sense about this thing of framing it as some of them are resistant to seeing the privilege, the oppression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is where you'll find your more militant feminists start coming forward, especially with very, very democratic countries with relatively lenient laws. The more militant feminists will come forward, and they will push for socialism just as hard as they can.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's take a small break and listen to some Swedish music. Let's listen from the band of AVFM Sverige contributing editor Joachim Ramsted, his band Tequila Sunrise, Why Is It a Crime to Be a Man?
I still can't believe, even if it's been 3 years, is it a crime to be a man? Surprise, but I got a heart too. And if you take away my child, I will feel just as blue as you. Why are you treating me so cruel? Is it a crime to be a man? Yeah. Why is it a crime?
And we're back. We've listened to Tequila Sunrise, Why Is It a Crime to Be a Man? A very, very nice song and a very, very nice band from Joachim in Sweden. We're in the closing stage of the show. We've been talking about the rape culture. Actually, we didn't talk too much about the rape culture, or rather about manipulation tactics and how France is a rape culture when they have the most popular minister of Rad Femme in there. But anyway, I guess I'm gonna just pass the mic to everyone, and then we're gonna say our good night. I'm gonna start with John. So, John, closing thoughts. I mean, you've brought up the thing with some of the countries being more resistant.
Yes. Well, what I would just like to say is that don't be deceived. Don't be manipulated. This is a simple fallacy. Guilt by association. The average person does not need to be bothered with this. They are not doing anything illegal. They are not doing anything unethical or immoral. They are going about their lives in a non-criminal fashion, and you should point that out. That you have done nothing wrong, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, and don't let them get to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. The only problem is that I'll keep coming back to French. I mean, I hope the French listeners won't think I'm picking on them, but really, in France, they actually have a law in which you can go to prison for a quote-unquote sexist joke, which could be construed as sexual harassment because kartoffel. So yeah, I mean, what do you do then? In places like France, you can't actually say, look, I didn't do anything illegal. Well, yes, you did, because we have a law here that says you're a sexist pig, because potato.
Because pomme de
Well,
terre.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with the French laws, so that is a very difficult situation. It sounds to me like we will need to have MRA France very soon.
Yeah, I
And
really
if you're
hope.
interested in doing something, help start that. Help get that off the ground.
Yes, since you mentioned that, by the way, if any of you listening in there, you know how to spell in French, and you speak a bit of French, we're looking for people to translate our material in French, at least the one that's relevant. AVFM en français is being built slowly as we speak, and we would need a little bit of more people, and we also would need someone to be the head of AVFM en français. But we already have some material translated, and it will soon go up. But yeah, if you are interested, give us a shot. Jon?
Yes, so I think that Iron John is spot on the money with the guilt by association. It's the old original sin idea, that if you want to rule people, if you want to tell people what to do, you have to make them feel guilty somehow. Because if they don't have any guilt, then you don't have anything over them. You don't have any way of getting leverage against them. So it's a way of making people, especially men, feel guilty, so that you can use sort of more draconian controls and get more power over them. And I think that it so far has been working, at least in a lot of countries. But why certain countries are more resistant to that, I don't really have a good answer to that. I don't really think that we were able to come up with anyone. Because, like, as I said, in Germany, the concept of rape culture is more or less unknown to the masses, but still feminism is still quite popular here, so I don't really have a good explanation of why that is. Maybe it's something that's worth looking into in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always wonder myself until I'll find the answer. How could they convince the average Frenchman that he's a part of the rape culture and thus approve a law that would imprison people for making a quote-unquote sexist joke? Or even without quote-unquote, a sexist joke, period. It's a sexist joke. It's a joke.
Yeah, I
Going
think
to jail for that?
I think it's sort of this sort of thinking among men, where you think of other men as your competitors, and the other men, they are sort of sexist pigs, and but like you are the one responsible one. You see through these sort of gendered expectations and so on. So I guess it's sort of a way of making feminist men feel special about themselves by denigrating other men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're like the one good man.
Yeah, the one good man. James?
Well, give me just 1 second here. Hold on. I have learned that today, according to French feminist logic, it is perfectly acceptable to waste Lucien's airtime reaffirming the fact that I have a dick. And I have just done so again.
As long as you acknowledge that your dick is just a social construct.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless
now,
you rape someone, then you do.
Yeah.
And I can feel free to be seductive with it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. We've been joking quite a lot, but if you really want to read something more academic-oriented about the topic of rape culture, I need to recommend this article, Janice Fiamengo, Why Call It a Rape Culture, published on avoiceformen.com. It's very long. I have to admit that I didn't get past the half of it, because it's too long. but yeah, it's very academic oriented. It's written in a very academic oriented fashion, and it drives the points home for those of you who are more interested in that side of approaching things. We used to do that here on AVFM Voice of Europe, but meanwhile, me and James became quite dicks, and yeah. Now let's hope with Jon now being here, he'll gonna tone us down a little bit and make us dicks.
He's gonna turn into a dick as well, and we're going to regularly reaffirm that.
Okay.
It's a dick culture.
Do we have tomorrow a show from Dean, James?
Yes, we do have a show tomorrow from Dean. Oh gosh, give me just one second.
It's gonna be Revelations with Erin Pizzey at 6 p.m. London time?
Our normal time, 12 Central. So
12 Central, yeah, 6 p.m. London time.
Tomorrow we've got Richard B. Felsen on the show. He specializes in violent behavior and criminology. So yeah, it's going to be a good show tomorrow. I suggest everybody tune in. I've had an opportunity to review some of this guy's work, and we'll see how tomorrow pans out.
Yep. So tomorrow 6 p.m. London time, 7 p.m. Germany time, 8 p.m. Romania or Finland time. Revelations with Erin Pizzey, and with that being said, thank you, John, for calling in. Thank you all. Take the red pill.
This has been a production of A Voice for Man. Lucian Wilson and his guests, thank you for listening to The Voice of Europe. A Voice for Men radio is not corporate media, and everything runs on donations. So please consider visiting avoiceformen.com and make a donation. We would also like to thank the artists De Prima Terra, Mbezna, Cristian Buica, the Iranian band Arsames, the DDG Project, and all the other artists that offered us their songs to use under Creative Commons license. Special thanks go to www.pacdv.com/sounds for putting the sounds of the jingles at our disposal. We would also want to remind the listeners to take the red pill. Thank you for listening to us, and have a great evening. Ați ascultat Vocea Europei.